Hello fellow hikers and wonders, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you. I tried to hike all the way up Fletcher Mountain and spoiler warning, I failed. You failed? No, I know, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
You failed!
And it was awesome.
Exceptional.
Outstanding. From failing, you learn. From success, not so much.
It's always important to remember that hiking is a lot like life. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. That's a great quote and good advice to follow. However, let's talk about this specific journey up Fletcher Mountain, which I started at Blue Lakes Trailhead. After turning off Country Road 9 and passing Quandary Peak Trailhead, you have 2.25 miles on unpaved Country Road 850. My two-wheel front-wheel drive Pontiac Vibe made it with absolutely no problems. Now, I've seen mountain goats in the 10-mile range before, but I did not expect to see a whole herd like this. That was amazing. There is no real trailhead for Fletcher Mountain, but you can just park at the end of the upper road. After that, just head up this section of loose rock up to the reservoir. You can't really park any closer than this, as the paved road dead ends at the top anyway. This is also the start for the South Couloir route and the Western Ridge route up Quandary. I might go into more detail of those if I ever do a video about the time I summited that 14er, but Fletcher Mountain is on the agenda for today. If you just want to have a nice, relaxing hike around the lake, you can take this trail heading along the coast. But today we want to veer off in this more north direction. That trail isn't as clearly defined, but I think it is obvious enough to be able to follow. After you get up the first section, it begins to look more like a proper trail. Be sure to take into account the time of year that you are hiking, because here in the middle of July, there was some snow covering these early sections of the trail. Not too hard to follow, but still maybe a little cause for concern. It doesn't take long until you get into the valley proper, and on this morning it was windy AF. Here, take a listen. Insert obligatory headphone warning. This headwind is making it even climbing worse. I'm tired. Not even mild. While you are in the valley, follow the trail along the creek, and depending upon the amount of snow melt, you will have to cross it at some point. The water was moving pretty good here, but nothing that a solid running leap couldn't solve. Then we get to the first heavy snow ascent up this first wall. I had noticed these footsteps heading off around to the left, but I wanted to stay closer to the trail, or at least what I thought was the trail, and then take the snow head on. I had my micro spikes, let's do this! It seemed like a good idea at the time, but maybe I should have taken the more gradual slope, because there was a second climb up this section that I wish I had saved a little bit of energy for. Perhaps now is a good time to mention that Colorado had an extremely heavy snowfall this year, and the snowpack took its sweet time to melt away. I remember when winter first started, I was thinking I would get back to hiking in mid-June, but we are still getting snowfall in late May and even early June. Due to a late spring, snowmelt was pushed back by more than a month. The delay this caused to the start of my hiking season and the ensuing cabin fever was hard to bear. Having listened to the reports and scouting out the location while summiting Quandary 2 weeks earlier on the 6th, I was already expecting a lot of snow, but expecting a lot of snow and climbing a lot of snow are two very distinct things. Anyway, once you get above all this snowfall, you get into the valley. Do we want to take a risk here and try to sound fancy? Of course we want to sound fancy. Once you climb all that snow, you'll find yourself in the cirque, looking at the ridge connecting Drift Peak to our prize, Fletcher Mountain. My friend the wind came back to greet me with a renewed ferocity. I did start heading towards Drift Peak. Pretty sure I gotta go up that snow ridge and over to that middle hump. Because there's a reason that I named this channel Navigationally Challenged, but eventually I figured out what mountain I was there to climb. This is where the fail in the title Fail Teener comes from. Climbing the boulder field in heavy winds strong enough to blow me back a couple feet, takes a lot of energy out of you. My fitness levels were low due to the long sedentary winter. Also, the 2 almost vertical snow climbs early in the hike took a lot out of me. Considering all those factors, and the fact that I was by myself, I didn't feel safe on that snowpack, so I decided to turn back without reaching the summit proper. After getting back into the cirque, I felt better and my head was clear. Down hiking with the wind is so much easier. Who would have thought? I looked back at the peak and noticed this little bypass skirting around to the western ridge. Rookie mistake. I should have analyzed and seen this before I started my summit attempt from the valley. At the time, I just knew the trail was up the eastern ridge and that's what my mind was focused on. While stuck on the peak, I did look back to see if any other hikers were coming up and I didn't see anyone. It turns out a father and his 2 sons were actually heading my way. If I had seen them coming, I may have been bolder in my attempt towards the summit. Who knows? Lots of what ifs on this trip. I passed along my western ridge suggestion and I wonder if they actually took it. They had an ice axe and a rope to tie off with, so they probably could have got across the snow on the eastern ridge much safer than I could have. When we parted ways, it sounded as if they were just going to try the western ridge altogether and forget the proper trail. Anyway, it turned into a very beautiful day, and the hike down was extremely pleasant. I had a lot of fun glissading down into the 2 basins. The Blue Lakes were absolutely gorgeous, so I found a nice quiet spot to get out of my boots and just relax in the warm sun. After a long winter, it was nice to just be out in the wilderness again. So that is my failed teener trip up Fletcher Mountain, and when I got home I wasn't quite sure how to categorize the trip in my fancy spreadsheets. I had made it up to 13,875 feet, which is just 76 feet short of the summit. That is super close, 99.5% of the total elevation of the mountain. How pure do summits have to actually be? Another metric you use is I've made it up 96.6% of the total elevation gained from the trailhead to the summit. The mechanical engineer in me that uses the LAR method thinks that's close enough and wants to put a check mark by it and just call it a day, but the mathematical purist in me has a problem with that. I was able to get the 2 to compromise, and so we gave it a check mark, but we also highlighted it yellow, and then we made all these fancy formulas to compare the true summit count versus the partial summit count. I hope this proves as a valid lesson in being prepared in terms of fitness level and planning. I use 14ers.com to read about the routes and their current conditions, but you gotta keep in mind, what you see on the computer screen is a lot different than when you're actually sucking wind out there in the elements. You have to keep your wits about you and you have to change plans accordingly if the situation calls for it. I bet you those 10-year-olds made it and you look foolish. Shut it. Just shut it. We made the safe decisions given those circumstances. At least we're making videos again. It's been a while. Yeah, I spent a week editing a video that I wasn't particularly proud of, so I got discouraged. Well, also we were busy doing the actual hiking, including this little one that came up on our vacation. Exactly. With winter coming, we should have more time to work on videos and keep the cabin fever at bay. Don't procrastinate because it looks like we won't have to wait as long this winter. Man, I'm already excited about next hiking season. When do you think we're gonna get out there? Mid-June? Maybe even April? Please don't start that again. It's gonna be last year all over again.